okay? Are we happening?
Yes, sir.
All right, okay. It is Wednesday, April the 3rd. I want to call this meeting of P&Z to order at 6:05. We'll start with roll call. Please at the end.
Michael Hall.
Mhm.
Brian Nash.
Jeannie Nyer.
Mike Rhodes.
Jerry Fleming.
Dave Bench.
Lee Simmons, City Attorney.
Very good, thanks. All right, is anyone signed up for public comment? All right, please.
Hi, this is Ricky Joshi. I live at 303 Pleasant. Not yet, but
The Ricky.
yeah. Okay, so I don't know the total decorum for this, but without speaking to specific addresses, so there's a home that's going up next to me that and I don't know the depths of sort of what's going on with some of the discussed policy and building height, height measurement, et cetera, but. I do ask for people who are kind of looking at that to drive by that house next to me to kind of see what I'm dealing with. I feel that based on, and I'm sure a lot of work has been done, but based on the way that there's a little bit, in my opinion, of a manipulation of some codes that were designed to allow for building height that I think has really impacted the value and kind of sanctity of my home to the point where I'm actually making a bigger wall now at the end of my side, so it ends up being a ward to the tallest, so I'm not being towered over a home that is actually below me. So that house has I believe a 12-inch foundation, which artificially raises it above 12 feet. Yeah, sorry, 12 feet foundation, which I believe artificially raises it well above where it naturally should reside. It goes up in the 30-something feet on the side that's close to me. It also has a natural grade. I think it's approaching 35 feet right to the edge. I actually, when I looked at the plans, it didn't actually seem like it was 10 feet from the lot line, to be totally honest. I don't know how that's measured, but it seemed like a little off to me. But regardless of that, I just generally feel that foundation height really needs to be looked at when all of these things are examined. And again, I implore anyone to just go and walk or drive by that home to kind of see the impact. It also just occupies the entire lot. So there's, I don't know if impervious cover is part of this or not. Unfortunately, you get to fill out the survey, but there's just very little greenery. So you have a very tall home. I call it a home on stilts. Right next to me, it's impinging on the view from the street. It's towering over everything else. It's towering over my house. I'm now trying to go higher just so it's not, not looking at something super large next to me. And my biggest concern is actually the homes that are across the street from me. They're older. New developers could come in. They're not super large lots. If there's no impervious cover, there's no FAR. Someone could take advantage of a grade and say the average grade is right here. I'm going to do, X amount on the foundation and go up super, super high. And I think the natural hills of this neighborhood and this area allow for those types of things to happen, and rules can be taken advantage of. And I just believe that they need to be restricted, and that's basically my point. And it's very unfortunate. I wouldn't have bought my home had I known this house was going up next to it at all. There's no question, and it's a very massive investment that it breaks my heart every single day that I have to live next to this thing. I didn't move to Rollingwood to live next to an office building. That's it.
Thank you for your comment. Very good. I will tell you that each of the members of the P&Z have gotten a copy of your email,
Okay.
so they're familiar with what you just described.
Great.
Okay, and thanks very much for coming. We don't get a lot of visitors.
We like our visitors.
So,
To the extent I was looking down, it's because I remembered your email and I was pulling it back up. Just so. But yes, thanks for the comments.
yeah.
And you are talking about the house on the corner.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it particularly goes up as you go towards my house.
I haven't driven that way, but I'll go do that.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
think
I've seen
you
the
look
other
at,
side.
you just drive down this direction, go up Pleasant. I think that's where it really starts to impact. And I think if you just so you can imagine what would happen if every other lot. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
just, you think about that house and there's nothing that can be done at this point. But you can only imagine if that were to happen on every lot. And from in my personal opinion, you have a 0.4 acre lot. Like why would you buy a 0.4? Sorry, maybe that's going there. But you're building to the edges without impervious cover, and you have the ability to build very high. So if you think about a smaller lot with no impervious cover restrictions, being able to go to the edge lines. I mean, someone really could build a 35-foot tall box on every side, 45 street facing, if they were able to build 12 feet to the foundation. I mean, really kind of think through what the worst case scenario a builder could go to maximize the lot space. I think that's just a nice, kind of framework to think about how these rules will be sort of implemented. Like how bad, or how could someone take advantage of them to build the maximum edifice? And I just generally don't think that it benefits anyone looking to move to Rollingwood. I think I hope what happened to me happens to no one. I can't imagine buying a house and then having a 45-foot structure put up next to you. It's not fun. So anyway.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Are there any other public comments? That'll do it. That was a good one. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Do we have a motion on the consent agenda? Meeting minutes from last meeting.
Do you want me to move to adopt the minutes from the last meeting? So moved.
Okay. We have a motion?
I second.
You second it, okay. Any discussion around that? Okay. We have motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes carry. Very good. 6-0. Good. We'll just move on to regular agenda item number 3, discussion and possible action to designate a chair for April 24th, 2024 Joint City Council and Planning and Zoning meeting. I'm going to be out of the country on the 24th, and I have asked Jeannie to sit in my absence to lead the meeting here, the joint meeting with City Council. Is everybody okay with that?
Would you like a motion?
I would love a motion.
Happy to make the motion to appoint Jeannie as the temporary chair for that meeting.
I'll second that motion. That
Okay,
sounds
we have a
like a really good one.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion on the, okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Okay. Ayes carry 6-0. Great. Racing along here. Discussion and possible action on a draft ordinance regarding item number 4, excuse me. Discussion and possible action on a draft ordinance regarding a proposed zoning amendment to prohibit rental of amenities in the residential zoning district. Now, you had that in the packet, you've seen it, had an opportunity to look at it. I presume that what we're being asked to do is to either approve this or not approve it to go up to City Council. Do I have that right? That is what we're trying to do here, right?
Right, to make a
Just as it is written, right?
To make a recommendation.
To make a recommendation.
Right.
Okay.
Most of what we do isn't really action. It goes to City Council.
You know, it all seems to make sense to me. The only thing that I don't really understand is that where it says the rental of any residential amenity, including but not limited to any feature of a residential dwelling or place, except where the amenity is included as part of the rental of a dwelling for longer than 30 days. I don't understand why we need the for longer than 30 days on there, given that we already have a short-term rental ordinance in place that kind of, this kind of doubles up on that, doesn't it?
So if I could, I'm gonna back up a little bit. I had
Okay.
jumped ahead to number 5. So this one is not about a recommendation to City Council. This had been discussed at your previous meeting. there was talks about, we had brought a ordinance about short-term rental of amenities to
Mhm.
the city council and then to the planning and zoning commission. And there was discussion about broadening that rental of amenities to not just short-term rentals only. We wanna be able to prohibit, longer-term rentals of just amenities alone. And so that's why this ordinance is here today. This is for you to take a look at, and if we're good with it here, we'll send it through the public hearing process that will
Right.
come to P&Z again,
Okay.
at one of your next meetings. But the intent of the ordinance in the packet is to include all rentals of amenities so that we don't have to even touch the short-term rental section. This would then apply to rental of amenities short and longer term.
Okay, so we're effectively just saying we're okay with this. That's it.
Tonight,
not.
Tonight, yes.
Yeah,
if
that's it.
this is in the form that you like it and are ready for it to come
And
back
you don't
through.
need a motion or anything around that, or do you?
I believe we would like a motion to direct. Would that be?
I think motion to
Preferred.
direct staff to come back with a public hearing item for the next P and Z
Okay.
meeting, where you actually will
All
make
right,
a recommendation.
Well, that's fine. Okay, if
Mhm.
that's all that is.
Sure.
Does anybody have any trouble with it, the way it's written? It seems pretty straightforward.
Can you just tell me the steps?
We're all learning together here, Jerry.
The public, a
This
public
is not
hea-
a recommendation.
Not yet.
What's the
We're,
preliminary
we're
procedure?
gonna make a recommendation to take this forward so that it actually goes to public hearing. See, we can't approve this right now without a public hearing.
Okay, that's all.
But, yeah, so we're looking at it, we're saying, yeah, it feels about right. Yeah.
And previously, that was just, we have to have one meeting before we have a meeting before you go to public hearing.
So I would say that based on your discussion at the last meeting, you had kind of already talked about bringing this forward to a public hearing.
Right.
It was then put back on the city council meeting for them to discuss that, P&Z talked about this. They did want to see the longer term rental of amenities also included. And
Yeah.
so they kind of sent it back down through the process again. And so this is us here with an official ordinance now for you to look at. And if you're good with it, we will then post notice, do all the publishing notice, everything required, and bring it back as a public hearing, at which point you will hold a public hearing and make a recommendation to city council on the ordinance.
Now, what also was, we had decided, or we talked about last meeting, that we wanted to combine this with other things. We didn't want to have a separate public hearing just for this single item.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really see a whole lot of urgency here anyway on this particular item, so, we would, I think, like that to be forwarded to city council as well.
I think that would be great, and if
Yeah.
that could be part of your motion, is just to direct for this to be, put through the public hearing process at the next time there's something else that is going to be on a public
Okay.
hearing, that would be great. That would save the city money in noticing. It would be good.
Okay. We good on this?
I just didn't know, and yes, the answer to your question is yes, I'm good on this. What was the background on this? I didn't notice that in the minutes, and so I probably didn't study the minutes as carefully as I should have. I apologize.
In some of the discussion that was happening in city council, particularly around the area of pickleball, whenever the pickleball business was being discussed, there was, somebody had brought up that they're aware that different facilities are being rented out, not necessarily in Rolling, but in other places.
Huh.
That, like short-term rentals, like Airbnb, there are websites that are being created to allow you to put
Come
amenities
use my
on there,
court
and you
type
can
thing.
check them out, right? And it was kind of, while pickleball was being discussed, and while courts and things of that nature were being discussed, it was just kind of brought up that maybe this is a good opportunity for us to be talking about this and putting an ordinance in place that prohibits it. It isn't a problem that we have right today, and I think that there's actually some concern that we're trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist, but I don't really see any harm in it either. So,
Thanks for that background. That's
okay.
helpful.
Did I say that right?
Absolutely.
That's how
Yep.
you understand?
Mhm.
Okay.
And then to go back to your previous question, Dave, about why it talks about it says except where the amenity is included as part of the rental of a dwelling for longer than 30 days.
Mhm.
So that would allow, if someone were to rent out their home for more than 30 days, a regular rental of a home, that the amenity would also be included in it. So
Right.
this just keeps it from being the amenity kind of broken out separately and rented short or long term.
Sure, sure.
Yes, so
yeah.
that's kind of the intent of that language.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So,
My-
I have a question. So I guess for legal perhaps, but like I know I don't do this and I don't have the intention of doing this, but I know I've seen it happen in the neighborhood where people will rent their house for like photo shoots, commercials, things like that. I assume this would prohibit those sorts of uses. I mean, you're using the exterior, probably taking pictures of pools and we've defined everything except the house as an amenity, basically. So, are we prohibiting that vis-a-vis this ordinance?
I will say before this ordinance, that those had been not considered as a true commercial use, so we were not disallowing someone to have a commercial recorded in their in their home or in their backyard. I'm not 100% clear, I guess, on what the impact of this ordinance would be on that, but we currently don't have anything else in our code that allows specifically or disallows, things like that, commercials and things like that. So, I guess that might be a good question for legal about what this ordinance does to that.
It's drafted pretty broadly. I think that's a question, actually, I think that's a policy question that you can forward to council. And if they decide that they want to send it back to you to consider those types of situations where it's, rental of a pool for a day for a photo shoot or something like that, then to make it more clear. But it's drafted pretty broadly, so I would think that, it's possible that would encapsulate those types of uses.
And, I'm sorry, were you finished?
Go ahead. I got another question, but you go ahead.
Okay. Well, my question was with respect to rental, is that defined as an exchange of money? Because, what about like charity events? Like, we've had some charity events on our street, and one home in particular has a gorgeous view, and it was for one evening. There was no exchange of money, and it was only for a fundraiser for a charity event. But is that, what does rental mean? I guess is my question.
That sounds like a party.
Well, it was a party, but it was a quiet party. But it was but it was for raising money for scholarships.
I don't think the code defines rental as the exchange of money.
Right. I don't think so either. I'm
Oh.
not sure it defines it,
I don't have an easy answer for that question.
but we can look into it.
My other question is there any teeth to this ordinance? Fines? What's the, so if somebody,
I think
you
a lot of Rolling Woods ordinances are kind of.
Toothless.
I'm sorry.
I think the word is toothless.
Yeah.
They have
I think they have
no
the,
teeth.
The teeth. The
Or
teeth.
I figured, but I just wanted to
Yeah.
ask.
Well, the teeth is the neighbors. That the neighbor who is being bugged by a particular thing has something on the books that they can go to City Hall and they can complain about. And say, well, these people are bothering me, and there's an ordinance on the books that says they're not supposed to be able to do what it is they're bothering me with. And so that puts something into action, some sort of a tooth into action, so.
I don't know that
Yes,
that's
it-
our. I don't know that that's our. I don't know that we can do anything about it, right? Like, I mean, ultimately, we have a short-term rental prohibition. I think you can find Rolling Wood homes, or you used to be able to, that are up on Airbnb and things like that. And you're like, oh, I know that house. It's on Airbnb. It shouldn't be. But like, what is it that stops that? And if you were to report it, right, and say, hey, this, like, I don't know that anything happens. There's no fine being assessed that I'm aware of. Or
There absolutely would be if it was reported.
oh, okay. So maybe
I'm
there
not-
is.
Okay.
Yes, there are definitely teeth to this ordinance. So it is in our zoning code. We have the full ability to enforce our zoning code. I will say from the short-term rental perspective, at least I think things might be a little different now. But originally, when they first came out, you couldn't really search a city or a specific, area. You couldn't find out what the address of the property was until you had rented it. And so I don't think it was as easy. It seems to me now that you can focus in a little bit on areas, so that may be something we can go out and proactively enforce. But if we were to get a complaint about, hey, my next door neighbor is Airbnb-ing out their house, we would 100% make contact, enforce that. We can't enforce it being on the website. That's not a violation for them to put their home on Airbnb or to put their pool on Swimply or one of these, but the act of renting it out through that, in a short-term rental would be. And so if we're able to prove that has happened, we can definitely enforce on it.
Okay, and so would we need to build into this provision like the fine aspect of it, or is it already a part of if you have engaged in a prohibited use under 10769, then there's a range of fines that would be assessed for that? So that's already part of the.
That's my understanding. We have an enforcement section of our code that applies to the entire code. And
Okay.
so, and actually that was recently we did that at City Council. We pulled out some unnecessary enforcement sections that we had throughout that really just mirrored or maybe weren't consistent with what we already have in our full enforcement section. So we have an area that goes over the enforcement for all of those sections. So this would be enforceable and would have fines and penalties associated with it as well.
I would like to amend my previous statement when I said the word toothless.
I'd
It
say
sounds
that's
like there may
that's
be
a
some
strong
teeth
word.
There is
indeed.
something there, yeah,
Yeah.
but it really
Okay.
requires, it really, I think almost every action is predicated on a neighbor's complaint.
Mm-hmm.
There's nobody snooping around looking
We don't
to
have
see
the
whether or not-
patrol squad.
No,
going
we don't
around,
have
yeah.
that. We don't have that,
No.
so. Okay,
Thanks for that explanation. It's very helpful.
very good. We're all learning together here.
So the motion here, as I understand it, would be to direct the staff to post this both for public comment at the next meeting,
Here.
public hearing at the next meeting, and then also to send it to city council for simultaneous review. Is that what that was at the end? What was the city council asking?
Well,
I
our-
didn't follow that.
So what if we do, so at public hearing, yes, at the next meeting that we have something else coming before the P and Z already in a public hearing, and between now and then, we can go back to city council and discuss, what were we going to add into it, or what was the discussion? for
What we
city
wanted
council?
it to ensure that it wasn't just
Commercials,
considered by itself at a public hearing, that it would be paired with some
something
other.
else.
thing,
Yes, and
right?
we will look into commercial filming, whether
And-
this,
yeah.
they want this to apply to things like that, and if it does, as well as rental, the definition of rental.
Would we want to enter that into the motion as well, that we want to have some clarification with regard to some sort of photo shoot kind of, would we do that?
I think so, sure, yes.
Want to do that?
Yes, let's do
All right.
that.
I think one other item, since we're listing things that maybe there should be clarification on, would be like parking. I think that would be included in this as an amenity, right? Like, come park at my spot for ACL Fest or something like that. But that might be another area for clarification.
Only if you're exchanging money, perhaps.
Well, like, I don't know if that's what people want in here. And I'm not saying I have an opinion on it. I live far enough away that I'm not getting hit up by my friends, can I come park at your house? But, so I definitely would think we wouldn't want to exclude a friend coming over and y'all walk into ACL.
Well, why don't we
together,
get,
so.
why don't we at least include it in the motion for clarification? Because these things did not get any discussion during city council.
Mhm.
So you bright people are coming up with some new things to think about that probably they want to think about as well.
So do we need to include all these things in the motion or no?
I think it would be helpful to list those
Yeah.
in the motion, and then we can go back and determine, for
Yeah.
example, for parking, if that does or doesn't fall into it,
Right.
we can report that back when we
So-
bring this through the public.
So
hearing
we're okay with
process.
what is written here, but we have some additional things that we would like to be considered, or at least clarified.
Clarified.
Okay?
That's too big for me,
Sounds
Mike.
like a motion for a
No,
real
no, no.
attorney.
I was trying to get it set up for you.
No.
It was like a softball I was trying to tee
It's
up.
all ready to go.
I can't.
It's all teed up, that's right.
Okay, I'll move for for us to direct the city staff to post this for a public hearing and to also sort of put it back to city council for clarification on whether properties would be able to be utilized for things like commercials or filming sets, parking lot or parking activity, parking, we'll just use the word parking. What was the other?
Paid parking, perhaps.
Paid parking.
Paid
Rented
And
parking.
charity events.
And charity events.
Mhm.
Those are the three.
And together, that it would be, public hearing would be paired with some other public, we wouldn't,
Yeah, from a timing perspective, I
Future
would,
Public hearing.
yeah, this could be paired up with whatever else we have on the P and Z docket for public hearing.
That's
is that,
That was
is
a
that good
great
enough?
motion.
Desiree, is
I'm
that good
pretty
enough for you? Can you do with it?
Yes.
Okay, all right. We want, okay,
I
what,
am, but
okay, we're being,
doesn't make me
we're,
qualified.
we're being asked one more time.
Okay,
Succinctly, okay, take another crack at it.
Definition of rental in there also clarified? Was that something else that you wanted?
Yes. In fact, that sounds like a great area for clarification, is what does it mean for something to be a rental? I think to some extent that's tied with our questions around a charity event and,
And the park.
and like friends coming over to park at your place we would not consider that to be rental, but just wanna make sure we've got clarity on that.
So, you wanna restate it then? Or are we good?
That was great.
I've got all the elements in there.
Okay.
The record,
got it all?
the record
Can-
reflects, for
okay.
clarification purposes, we'll
Then
just
we're
cite
good,
back to
we're
the
good,
transcript.
We're good, okay, if we've got all the elements. All right, we have a motion, do we have a second?
Well, I moved the second.
All right, and, any further discussion on the item? Yeah, I think we handled it pretty well. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, ayes carry, 6-0, good. On to discussion item, regular agenda item number 5, our final one for this evening. We're just racing along here, folks. Discussion and possible action on recommendations from the CRCRC regarding building height measurement and related considerations. I'd like to start this off by actually reading what, you have this in your packet, what the actual recommendation is, and then we can open up discussion after that, okay? So, the way this is written from the CRCRC is the discussion and possible action on recommendations from the CRC regarding building height measurement and related considerations, a 35-foot maximum residential building height that is measured from an enclosure whose base is defined by a survey of existing grade and extending to an imaginary plane 35 feet above measured to the uppermost edge of roofing material or parapet, and providing that unusual topographic variations with a width of less than 25 feet, including pools, ponds, existing basements, rock outcroppings, and natural drainage ways, shall not be included when establishing imaginary planes, and subject to a program that limits sidewall height to 25 feet at 10 feet from the property line, and then increments 1 foot upward for every additional foot of horizontal distance to the property line, such that at 15 feet from the property line, there would be a 30-foot wall height limit, and at 20 feet, the 35-foot maximum horizontal plane would be reached, and allowing for dormers positioned a minimum of 3 feet back from the wall line and that do not exceed the maximum allowable height and are no more than 15 feet cumulative along any axis measured from outside wall to outside wall.
It was well done,
That's
Dave.
the recommendation.
I thought it was very clearly written. My only question, well, I have one comment. After reading all of the ordinances of other cities, and it was very helpful, but I have a lot of respect now for architects that I didn't have before. My question, though, is about dormers. What is that? I don't understand that last bullet exactly.
What it says is that, you know what a dormer is? It's a protrusion off of a roof.
I'll show you a picture.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I know what a
That's
dormer
like-
is.
Yeah,
but-
right,
Yeah,
right.
I know what a dormer is. I wasn't sure, though, how you're defining. So, positioned a minimum of 3 feet back from the wall line.
Okay.
So there's a wall down below here where the main roof is.
We
So
happen to
say
have an architect handy here.
3 feet
And-
from that primary wall, if you will. So,
And are no more than 15 feet cumulative along any axis measured from outside wall to outside wall.
So the width of the dormer cannot be, or a combination of dormers cannot exceed 15 feet. So if you have 2 dormers, they can be up to 7.5 feet wide each, or if you have 1 dormer, it is not allowed to be more than 15 feet wide. Or 5 3-foot dormers.
All right, so the section, I mean, I totally understand the progression back from the property line. So essentially though, you can have a dormer at, let's say, 20 feet, okay, so you're at the 20 feet height. And so you could have a dormer that goes out beyond that?
You could if what you're saying is, if it exceeds, it kind of breaks the 1 foot distance in rule,
Uh-huh,
yes, you could do that.
okay.
Not to exceed 35 feet.
Right, well, that
Yeah.
part I understood. It
So,
was kind
yeah.
of,
So if
I
you
was
had a
trying to
sloping
figure out how
plane, if you had a tent,
dormers would
the
fit into
dormer
it.
could protrude the tent, but not to the extent of 35 feet, or beyond 35 feet.
so I wasn't here last month, so I apologize.
Yeah,
But can we take a step back and
sure.
Oh, it's a little. It's a
You like
plan.
that?
It's good. It was well done. It was well done.
Can you give us an update on like where the CRCRC is and perhaps why this is? I mean, I get the height problem. I think I drove by your house, and we got this one and we got some others. So I mean, I
just
get
got-
the
yeah,
issue, and I think I
right.
generally
Okay.
Where's your house?
this is a mouthful, the language, but
Yeah.
but I think in
Oh,
concept, like
I know who you are.
I understand and generally
Next to
really
that one
support
that's
it.
going up in the berms.
But I just am
Yeah.
curious what happened to the comprehensive plan.
Okay. I think what you're asking is whenever the comprehensive commercial plan work was done a couple of years ago, that the entire set of recommendations was bundled together as a single package and then presented as a single package. And that still hasn't gotten out yet. Still hasn't gotten back to us to consider or approve. We thought, the CRCRC thought, that certain aspects of what our survey determined had more urgency than others. All of them require a lot of work. Everything that we're dealing with in the CRCRC is requiring a lot of investigation, a lot of seeing what other cities are doing, a lot of, we've got, I'm sure, several hundred hours of effort into all this. Building heights is what put us on the map. That's the star of the show. If it weren't for building heights, there wouldn't be a CRCRC. And I know that not only are we interested in getting it out as one of our early products, but City Council was also interested having this considered early. So we're not doing it the same way as what the comprehensive commercial side did. We're not gonna deliver one big report and have it come to P and Z all together, all tied up completely together. We're gonna do it piece by piece as we get things done. You can expect trees to be treated pretty soon. We're getting pretty close to the end on that. So, and then we'll be getting into things like impervious cover and other things. But this was the star of the show. This is the thing that put CRCRC into motion, and we wanted to get it handled early. Does that help?
I understand what you said. Yeah, I guess that was not my expectation, but
Yeah, I thought, I mean, I didn't mean to cut you off. My impression was actually that, and I didn't realize, I thought we were trying to do something closer to what we did with the commercial comprehensive plan. Like we were trying to kind of think of it, because I think there were two things that I remember when this dialogue first started, which was that number one, we wanted input from the community, and I think that survey was huge, and you guys did such a great job with that. And then number two was that it was so convoluted with our code. You know, there's like this provision here that talks about setbacks, and it talks about it in a very obtuse type way that you have to kind of back out where the buildable area is. And then we had conversations about building height coming up, but we also had sort of impervious cover, and we had like these other things. And so it was like, well, we need to kind of better understand how it all fits together to know if there's going to be unintended consequences by us doing it piecemeal. So I guess maybe, and it might have been my mistaken impression, was that the two things we were trying to do is have the CRCRC conduct the survey to get a flavor for the public sentiment, but also think of these things holistically and as a package, so that we could end up going like, okay, if this is your lot, what you're going to be able to do is build here to this level, this height, with a total square footage of X.
Right.
And so that you could better understand what the whole picture would look like at the end.
We believe that we have isolated out those components that have to do with building height only. And that no other action that we're taking within CRCRC will have any impact on building height. Okay, there will be other things having to do with lots and sizes and things like that, but building height, as it sits, we think we have here all of the components that we needed in order to make a recommendation, and it won't change. Jeannie, yeah.
Both of you were not here at the last meeting, correct?
correct.
And we did talk about that. We talked about the fact that it wasn't part of a comprehensive proposal. Initially, I kind of was feeling the same way. But then, over the last month, I've been thinking about it because, of course, of my own personal experience. But also because I do think that having a comprehensive plan going forward we need to get there. But it could take months. And in the meantime, we have a building department that's looking at plans all the time. And if we could go ahead and just break out at least the height and get that done, then we can still move forward with a complete comprehensive plan. But in the meantime, if we don't do something, they're going to continue to build these monsters. And I think that, as Dave said, that City Council, I was at the meetings when they said they want this. And so I don't think it precludes a larger plan, but is a necessary first step. And it is necessary because there are people who are continuing to request building permits, and we're going to have more of these monsters built if we don't stop it. And we can nitpick to death, groupthink, the wording of everything, but it's never going to happen if we don't take a stand and say, it's time, we've gotta stop this. And my only concern is, and I'm totally in favor of a 35-foot building height. My only concern that we talked about last month was how you define the base. Because, I mean, like supposedly the house that was built next door to, or is being built next door to us, was in conformance with the 35-foot limit that we have now, but it's obviously not. And so we have to create the 35-foot restriction with enough teeth that it can be easily interpreted and enforced. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does, yeah.
Well, the only thing I would like to add is I'm still trying to understand the process, is this is a recommendation, not the ordinance. And as we're seeing on the previous one, it's gotta go, this recommendation goes to the city council, it's not even the ordinance, the language. They look at it, it's gonna come back to us.
That's right.
And then we're gonna have a hearing, and then everybody jumps on board again, and then after the hearing, does it come back to us, P and Z?
After
Or is
the
it-
hearing, it will be, I think it'll be codified at the hearing time. I could be wrong on that. Would we actually have it in some sort of a write-up before it gets to public hearing? We would be considering actual legal language.
Right,
At
yeah,
that
if you
point.
recommended something here and went to city council, they agreed or did whatever, they
Mhm.
would then direct it to be put into actual code language and sent back through the public hearing process.
So that would be our last time to touch it, Jerry.
We have a joint meeting next month?
That is on, yes, that's on the commercial code
Yeah.
stuff, so that, that's the
Okay.
language
So
for the
that's to
full.
approve and,
Mhm,
okay.
mhm.
That thing, yeah, so, and, you're asking about that. We heard Brooke Brown give us a presentation on the, comprehensive plan. It was a year and a half ago.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I almost
Yeah.
forgot what we talked about, but I
That's
remember
right.
we went into detail about
That's
it,
right.
and I thought it was
She
like
gave us a
the finish
presentation,
line.
that was it, that was the comprehensive plan, and we agreed to take that forward, okay, and send it to city council, and then we had a joint hearing on it that said, yes, we think this is the right thing, so now it went into code, it's been being coded.
Oh, so
And
it's-
now what's coming up is a joint hearing with the code. Now, this is a year and a half later.
So it took our code folks a year to turn it into.
It took
written
all
code?
that
Is
time. See, and that,
Is that correct? Well, I mean, what happened, like, help me understand what happened from, because I think we looked at, we
Yeah,
had
that's
minor
it.
stuff,
right,
right?
yeah.
It was
That
not a
was it.
lot, we
That-
had a few very
This is
little.
way more difficult than that. What we're doing here is way more
Okay,
difficult.
I'm just want to understand that process, but like, we went through that, we had a few nits and picks.
Yep.
And then we were like, this is great.
Yep,
And so you're telling me from that meeting to
Mhm.
now, all we've done is legalese this.
The city council approved for a planner, to actually help with that process, and I think at that time they had a proposed maybe 4 to 6 month calendar, I can't remember, for the process. A small committee from the original group was brought in to work on that, and between that committee and that planner, we've gone through a few iterations, and yes, we are finally now almost at the point where we have some language, and so it's just the process it went through.
we're trying to take this from a snail's pace to a turtle's pace. We're ramping it up, okay?
Big goals.
Trying to go, just get something going here. And it's, given the rules that we have to follow, it's difficult.
Is it fair to say something?
I would
More than fair, Duke.
I'm Duke Garwood. Jeannie, I think, said it great. I don't think it precludes the big concept and the whole package. But you know what? There's a lot of, poor Ricky. He's hearing nothing. This would be something that would make him go, oh boy, something good's happening in regard to his concerns and his personal sort of environmental situation. But I just feel like there's sort of this figurative pressure out there for, hey, those guys are meeting. Why not? We did this survey, and what's happened? This would be a little step, a little effort to kind of show some progress and make it feel like our efforts doing something.
And you know, last meeting, we did approve the corner, driveway thing. With
Yeah.
recommendation from CRCRC.
That's
So
right.
this would be the second one, right?
That's
To
right,
allow
but it
for
did,
corner
yeah,
driveways?
Yeah.
city council
I'm
did,
losing everything.
yeah.
You weren't there.
I wasn't there, apparently. Should show up.
Yep, so that was actually the first thing that was being considered. It did go to city council, it did not get approved.
Oh, it didn't?
It got tabled, but there were some questions and
There's still hope.
some
Mike.
surprises.
You've got your.
But we used that, the whole idea of one of the main ideas of doing the driveway business was to kind of feel our way around this process. Because this process that we're doing is different from what the original comprehensive plan did. We are doing it differently. And we're doing it differently because we want to speed it along. Some aspects of what it is we're recommending are not urgent. This one we think is.
Well, I personally appreciate all the effort you guys have spent going over it and the expertise on the committee, the architects in particular.
Yeah, there's,
There's a lot of kicking it around. That's all I can tell you.
yeah.
Can,
I also appreciate all the effort
Oh,
the
sure.
CRCRC has been putting into this. You guys are doing a lot of hard work on it, so thank you very much.
The way I see it, it is, you know, we work for city council, and CRCRC effectively works for us, you know, and the idea was to put something in place that could make a recommendation that would get through P&Z and up to city council, because city council wants this attended to. They want something to happen. And we started off with a survey. We've got clear guidance from the survey that people in general are not happy with the way, the sizes of homes that are being built today. And to a large extent, it has to do with their heights and the way those heights are measured. And, you know, you guys can read through the survey results yourself, but it's clear. You get into it. And we've addressed that with these recommendations. We think well enough and isolated enough that nothing else that we talk about is going to have any impact on these recommendations. So we believe they're tight.
so just a question, because I see this diagram on page 14 of the packet, that has red lines sloping for existing grade, which mirror this exhibit, and then there are blue lines showing finished grade, height seemingly measured from both. So is the intention of this, I'll call it a draft ordinance, but
Okay, I'm trying.
draft bullet points, if you will. It's the sloping imaginary plane as it exists under the footprint that you choose to build on, or the whole lot, or what's been discussed?
It'd be
You wanna-
that description of a tent that's within the setback requirements.
So we were gonna go from setback to setback, those existing grades set whatever sloping plane, flat, whatever the plane is. Could be,
With those exceptions noted, you know, unusual topographic features.
Within the wall-to-wall of the building, not to the property line. Did you say property line?
no, I think I got from setback
Okay,
to
okay,
setback.
you're good,
But
good.
setback
Okay.
to setback, I guess, is a choice.
That's cool,
A
good,
little bit,
yeah.
but,
Right.
you know.
Provided that you're building to the setback, right?
Okay,
Yeah,
is there,
right.
just some questions, I guess, just to catch me up, were there any, so we're gonna treat like a street side the same as a common side property line.
Yes.
Okay. And no exceptions for chimneys, lightning protection, anything like that? Have y'all discussed that sort of thing?
Well, we're allowing, we should have written in there, we were allowing 3 feet for chimneys.
Appurtenances are 3 feet, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
What does
Good.
appurtenance mean? Is that like things that stick up out of the roof?
Projection, like chimney.
Because you've got like the little vents and stuff that pop out of a roof, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
Well, since this is simply a recommendation at this point
That's
to
right.
approve,
That's right.
to move to the city, to forward to the city council,
Yes.
at that point, it's their ball.
Right.
Well, can I make a motion?
I wish you would.
So before you do, just process-wise, we
Okay.
say there's a motion approved to send this to council. Council will draft an ordinance. The ordinance will come back to us.
That's right.
To review, discuss, and make a recommendation.
That's right.
Okay.
Exactly that. This won't be the last time you see this.
Right.
Yes.
And the odds are that whenever it does come back to us, there'll be other things tied into it as well. There will be, but, you know, I don't know what that will be. I don't know what it'll be yet.
Yeah, there's a lot of things on this that I see that are super vague. That
Right.
like,
Yeah.
I'm like, this plane, all of the exceptions to the plane, like natural drainage ways. It's like, are we gonna be in fights over, well, but that's technically a natural drainage. But like, I'm not gonna, cause this is not the ordinance. It's
Correct.
just, these are the guiding principles you wanna send up to city council is the way.
I
it
think
is.
that, I've been told that, we're not gonna be allowed to put graphics into the ordinance.
Why?
We're not,
City of Austin
It's
has
been-
graphics in
I have no idea
ordinances.
why.
The graphics are really great.
People tell me
Pictures
things,
worth 1,000
people tell me
words,
things
right?
and I say, okay,
Who's
well,
telling you
all
this,
right, I
Dave?
got it,
Who's
got
saying
it.
you can't do
Dave,
that?
come on.
Is a fellow CR.
It's not, no, it's,
I think we're gonna have a few.
it would be one of our elected officials. I'll leave it at that.
Can we consult our city attorney?
But-
City attorney's present.
But what we can do is just like there is the drainage criteria manual, I can expect that there will be a document that is created that describes this in better detail than what is in what we're seeing tonight, so that you have pictures and things. You say, well, this is how it works, and this is how it works, and da-da-da-da. That's, I think, where we're gonna be going with this. But in the meantime, we have to have the concept approved. You know, we can't start with anything without knowing that it's 35 feet and that we're measuring it from a plane that is defined this way. So we can't get anywhere. So,
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
The one point I do want to make though is I think like this house that
yeah, right.
I've heard so many mixed opinions about this, and you know I look at this and
Which one are we looking at? Ah,
and I
okay.
think that like the other side by the neighboring lot is lower, and they put the height on the street side, and I've heard many people say that they think this is fine. You know, I've heard both, but
Sure.
you know, I think we should consider allowing height where it doesn't impact neighbors, right? Because that gives versatility, what have you, and so that would be my one, you know, comment to the CRCRC to consider. Just, you know, height is really punitive in some situations to neighbors, and then in others it's not at all. And I think we should try to identify those areas and focus on those mostly, especially if we're pushing through a special little ordinance for height when we've got the bigger package coming. So, but otherwise, I'm happy to make a motion to send this for ordinance production by council.
I second.
All right.
Just-
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second.
Mr. Chair, can I just clarify the motion? This is a motion to recommend the CRCRC actions to City Council for consideration for a draft ordinance to come back to Planning and Zoning Commission.
Is it actions or recommendations?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Recommendations.
Let's go with yes.
Recommendation, yeah. Okay. And as was stated, whenever we went into this, a description,
Yes.
okay, all right? Right, right,
I
okay.
think-
So we have a motion, we have a second.
Yeah, before we voted on this I
Okay.
just wanna understand what I'm voting on. So, am I saying that if I vote yes, I recommend everything that's in these bullet points? Or am I just recommending that city council look at these bullet points and draft something up that we can then look at? If it's the latter, I'm okay with it, but like, I like parts of these bullet points for sure, and I do think we need to start doing something about height for sure. But there's so many things in here that I look and I like, ooh, I don't know what that even means, and so I'm concerned with the unintended consequence of it.
Well, why
is.
don't we educate you? If there's an issue, you know, if it's not clear, then that's no good. Yeah, we wanna be sure that you know what you're signing, yes. Yeah, it's not a blank check.
Yeah, well, so
Um,
I'm totally fine if somebody wants to hammer out the ambiguity and come back with a code that we, like a draft code provision.
Right,
Cause that I can take a look at and see, okay, well, let's take what's written in the code
okay.
and I can draw it out on a piece of paper and understand it, but there's like, this imaginary plane to me sounds problematic in terms of like if I'm a builder or an architect, it's gonna be really hard to understand how that works, especially as it relates to the exceptions for, you know, pools, ponds, basements, rock outcroppings, natural drainage ways. It's kind of like, what does all that mean, and how does that affect or not affect your imaginary plane? So if I've got like a little dip, can I
Yeah.
say like I get to ignore that? But like, when does a dip become a creek, become a whatever? So a depression, you know, like,
Yeah.
so that's all where I get confusion. And then the last bullet point with the dormers, we kind of talked about how it needs to include more than just dormers, but the no more than 15 cumulative feet along any axis measured from the outside wall, I don't even understand what that part meant. And so, like, I just wanted to say, I don't necessarily recommend everything that's in the bullet points.
Yeah,
I would just be saying, I'm fine with somebody wanting to put together, kind of like we saw on the agenda item 5, where it's like, here's the code.
Yeah.
And then you can look at it and go, we need to change these words.
right.
Does that make sense? To me, these seem
Yeah.
like high-level concept bullets.
That's what
That's what I
I think
think they
we
are.
were recommending.
Right,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
that was
yeah.
And I don't,
thoroughly stated, but I agree.
yeah, I don't need to get into the ambiguity that I see here.
Okay.
If all we're doing is say, why don't you write something up so we can take a look at it? If
Okay.
that's it, then I'm ready to vote. If it's
Okay.
not, then I've got a list of things that I'm
Well,
still
you
confused about.
you will have that opportunity to see it in legalese, where you can,
That's now we're talking my language.
With
Yeah.
diagrams,
Okay.
please.
with diagrams.
Hopefully.
Well, yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Now, we have a motion, we have a second, we're having discussion, any more discussion around the item? All right. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Did I hear 6 ayes?
No, my I was not stated I.
Okay,
Sorry about that.
all right,
It
Can
happened
I
too quick.
abstain?
okay.
I would like to abstain.
You would like to abstain, why would
Yes.
you like to do that?
Kind of just show I don't like the whole tenting idea at all.
Okay.
Having come from Austin and having McMansion ordinance, I
Right.
think it's created huge ugly boxes, and I think this is heading in the same direction because everything you're saying about this much back, it has to be this much back, it's this, except for these exceptions, is going to get you exactly that. It's going to get you a 15-foot dormer, it's going to get you roofs that go like that, and it's going to get you the biggest thing on there. So I think the way to probably better do this
Uh-huh.
than height is like a combination of height and other factors, which I think is what we were kind of getting to with the idea of the comprehensive plan rather than just saying let's go with only height. That being said, I totally get too if somebody has a place that's built 45 feet towering right over their house. So I don't know how to best reconcile those two, but I really don't want to see Rollingwood turn into McMansionville.
Okay,
Like, you know, everything built in one style because that's what maximizes the square footage.
we,
I don't disagree with that. No, that's double negative. I agree with what you said, and you don't want to encourage that. So
Yeah, I
think
agree
we
too.
all
I've
have.
said that the whole time. I hate what happened with the architectural styles that resulted from the McMansion ordinance in Austin. It's awful. It's like
Mhm.
Dormerville, and it's just created these just horrible houses. So,
No offense.
no offense.
No
to
offense,
anyone
City
that
Boss.
might have one, but they're not watching.
may
the
want-
roll- They're not watching the rolling with P&Z.
They're not. What?
Well, we have.
This is fascinating.
We have voted, but I want to make sure that if you're abstaining, Mike,
Uh-huh.
is that appropriate, or should it just be a negative? I mean,
Abstention is fine.
If you had a conflict, I would say, well, abstaining would make sense. But
It's
I'm
just,
wondering, is
yeah,
that
it's
the right-
just,
is that really what it-
Abstention counts as it's essentially a no
It's a
vote.
no,
It's a no
yeah.
vote.
It's a no vote, yeah.
But the motion carried.
The merit, so, motion carries 5-1. Okay.
We kicked
Thank
it to city council now.
that's right.
All right.
I would like to move to adjourn. No, are we there yet?
Well, does anybody want second that?
Second.
Second, okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I call this meeting adjourned at 7:05. Thank you very, very much.
Great efficient meeting.